Does anyone really think a superhero can escape his old life? Welcome to the Complete Story Series. We take trade paperbacks and single issues, and we break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then we read it dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panel sticks and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. This is a continuation to our story, The Valiant, and this is an entire universe brought to you by the comic book company, Valiant. They do a great job of creating their own superheroes, and this one is what happens to Bloodshot after the story The Valiant. If you want to watch that episode, we'll link it right now, but otherwise we'll fill you in. You see, our hero is Bloodshot, a hero that has the ability to heal any wound thanks to little nanites in his bloodstream. And once he finally freed himself from the rising spirit's brainwashing, he joined our heroes in the world of Valiant. But there was a woman called a geomancer, and she was destined to die. It was foretold, and no matter what Galad the Eternal Warrior did, it was going to happen. But before passing on, she did one final act of good and purged her bodyguard of his little nanites, freeing him once and for all from his curse. Bloodshot, now named Ray Garrison, lives as a handyman in a hotel, where he spends his days fixing the place up for his rent. And his evenings? Well, his evenings are in a drunken haze, trying to forget the things that he did as Bloodshot for all of those years. He took hundreds, maybe thousands of lives as Bloodshot, and every night those individuals still haunt him. But what's worse is the idea that the nanites might come back at any moment, surprise him and turn him back into the killer that he once was. So in order to keep himself from turning back into that killer, he's begun to see things. And the first thing that he begins hallucinating is that he sees Kay, the woman that he was supposed to protect, the one that purged him of his little nanites, the one that he failed and let die. The next morning, he had a hangover from his self-remedies, and he sees something that scares him right down to his soul on the news. A man on a killing spree with white skin and a red circle on his chest. A man that looks like Bloodshot once did. He can't believe it. Someone is toting his colors and killing people. So he walks out of the hotel office and back to his room shocked, trying to ignore it. This man is committing a mass shooting in Colorado, and the news is now calling him the Red Circle Killer. But with all of the stress of the situation getting worse, Ray starts to hallucinate even more, and he sees Bloodsquirt poke his head out of the TV. Bloodsquirt is a little cartoon version of Bloodshot, and he's here to help. You know what we have to do, Ray? No. We have to get the blood bank and fire up the Bloodmobile and get moving. It's me, your lovable sidekick, Bloodsquirt. I'm not Bloodshot. We need to do this, Ray. We need to stop this man from killing again. But then the news joins in by releasing the name of one of the man's victims, an 8-year-old girl named Sally Lewis. With tears running down his face, the news asks him, will the Red Circle Killer kill again? Ray walks out to the shed where he puts some red paint onto a black t-shirt, and then he quits his job before going back to his room. There, the visions of Bloodsquirt and Kay welcome Bloodshot back into action as he pulls his shirt on and gets ready to move out for his first mission. Meanwhile, the FBI are on the case, and they have the help of a special agent named Diane Festival. She has special skills that allow her to think like a killer and track their movements. But she's managed to get footage on a man named Ray Garrison buying a lot of weapons with straight cash. Ray cuts his hand to make sure that he doesn't have the nanites back, because he can feel them pulling to him, telling him where to go, and right now, he's right outside where this killer is. Packing quite a few guns, he approaches this guy's cabin in the woods, ready to end this now, when the Red Circle Killer tackles him from behind. Ray remembers that the nanites made his body perfect. He was able to track anyone, and he hasn't had those in a while, so he's slow and filled with molasses, while this man is a powerhouse. The Red Circle Killer jumps on Ray, ready to shove a knife into his face, while Ray holds it back with everything that he has. He then kicks the killer in the nuts, and he shoots him full of bullets. Then, as the man pleads with him, please, Ray takes a hatchet to his head, killing him. The blood from the man travels up the hatchet and to Ray, pumping him full of the man's nanites once again. He can feel them entering his body, and he knew that this was the start. It was the beginning of Bloodshot again. But it isn't enough to turn him. It was only a few, and it isn't even enough to heal his hand. So he sets this man's body on fire, and he heads into the cabin to relax. It's all over, isn't it? But at that moment, the news comes on, letting Bloodshot know that there was another mass murder by another man that is all white with a red circle on his chest. The next day, the FBI arrives at the cabin, but just a little too late, as Ray Garrison is long gone. He's gone to the nearby motel where he technically is having a talk with himself, but it's actually the hallucinations of Bloodsquirt and Kay. He doesn't want this, to keep getting the nanites back, but Kay tells him he's the only one who can control them. He needs to do it. But Ray doesn't want to hear it. He doesn't want to become that thing again, not after she made him a man finally. And Kay argues that if he wants to be a man, then open up the folder that he's been carrying around from Project Rising Spirit, the one that'll tell him who he used to be. You see, ever since Ray became human again, he's been hiding from his old past. He doesn't want to know what he left behind. And Kay tells him to make a choice. Open that and go back, or go stop the next Bloodshot. So using the little amount of nanites that he got his hands on, he changes his appearance to look like an officer that just walked out of the precinct. He then walks in as that officer and right to the interrogation room where they're holding the latest Bloodshot. And then he strangles the man and snaps his neck. The nanites then leave that man's body and they go back into Ray Garrison. He feels them pumping through his veins, re-entering his bloodstream. Meanwhile, over at the motel that Ray was staying at, the FBI are starting to figure out that he's involved somehow. Diane Festival gets a phone call from a mystery individual telling her to look into the Rising Spirit project, and the other officers there show her something interesting in Ray's closet. A bunch of red circles are painted there. They then make their way to the police station because their mass murderer has just been found dead in the interrogation room. But by the time they get there, Ray is already on his next target, and when he finally gets to the rundown apartments that the next guy is in, he looks to his two little mind tricks, Bloodsquirt and Kay. "What are you?" he asks Bloodsquirt. "Me? I'm your secret weapon, the squirt who brings the hurt." "Enough," Ray says, pointing a gun at Bloodsquirt. "What are you really?" And then he reaches over and starts to strangle Bloodsquirt. "No, Ray, you need us," Kay tells him. "Where were you before this? Cleaning toilets in a motel." "You know what?" Ray says, turning to Kay. "This is your fault. I didn't ask you to take the nanites from me. I'm just a pawn again, first for Rising Spirit and now for you." "No, Ray, you're a soldier and this is a war." "This isn't a war, Kay. These are innocents." "There are no innocents, Ray." And with that, Ray enters the apartment building. He walks upstairs and he kicks in the door that the nanites tell him to. Inside, he can see weapons, drugs, and needles. But then, out of the blue, a man with a shotgun comes running out of a closet, shouting, "You can't take them!" He jumps on top of Ray, shouting, "God gave these to me!" And Ray turns over and stabs the man in the gut. He then gets up, pulls the knife out, and kicks Ray across the jaw. Then jumping on top of him, he exclaims, "I am God's spear!" And that's when Ray watches the man's head get blown off. He then sees standing behind where the crazy man once stood is a poor girl with a black eye and a pistol. The blood from the man begins to pump out of him and into Bloodshot. More nanites for his bloodstream. The FBI showed up right behind Bloodshot as he takes the girl with him. Once again, they're just a few steps behind Ray Garrison. The girl's name is Magic, and she was abused by the man who is named Mikey. At first, Ray was going to leave her in the motel that he got them to for that night. His mission isn't over and he needs to collect the rest of the nanites. But maybe this journey can just be a little less lonesome with Magic by his side, because he does fall in love with the girl, and even he doesn't know when that started. This ends issue 4. It's an ongoing story brought to you by one of my favorite writers, Jeff Lemire. And if you want to pick it up now, make sure you go to your local store and ask for Valiant, or go online and order the next Valiant books. Go ahead and get Bloodshot Reborn 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever has come out by the time you watch this video. I'm Benny the Comicstorian, and we will be continuing this, but it will take some time.